Amara Lewis had never felt more out of place than she did that morning, standing in the lobby of the pristine Blackwood Performance Institute in West London. The air smelled of expensive protein powder and eucalyptus-scented towels. The walls gleamed white, the floors polished like marble altars. Everyone in sight wore designer trackwear. But Amara, an 18-year-old black girl from Atlanta, wore hand-me-downs of faded hoodie and sneakers held together by hope and duct tape. She clutched the acceptance email printed from a public library computer. It was real. The youth scholarship program existed. Declan Hayes, the head trainer, had signed it himself. It was her golden ticket to real training, not the underground circuits or makeshift gyms she had grown up in. Just one shot to show she belonged. But belonging wasn't something Fiona Blackwood gave easily. From across the room, Fiona spotted her lounging between a sparring session and a selfie. Fiona Blackwood, undefeated two-time world champion, national celebrity darling of brands and brutal punchlines alike. Her social media accounts racked up millions of followers, not just for her strength, but for her venom. She built her brand on being untouchable and unbearable. "Look what we've got here," Fiona called out, her voice amplified by smugness. "Someone get the poor girl a map. You're about 10 blocks too posh for your pay grade, love." The room paused. Trainers halted pads. Fighters dropped jump ropes. The newcomers looked away, unsure if it was a joke. But it wasn't. I'm here for the scholarship," Amara said, holding up the wrinkled paper. Fiona sauntered over her toned arms, crossed over a gleaming sports bra. She smirked at Amara's sneakers. "Sweetheart, this is Blackwood Performance. We don't do charity. We sculpt champions." One of the assistants whispered, "She's on the list, Fiona. Signed by Declan." "Oh, is she now?" Fiona laughed, whipping out her phone. "Can't wait to livestream this. My followers adore an underdog moment, especially when it ends predictably." Amara lowered her eyes, not out of fear, but to suppress the rage boiling in her chest. She had fought men twice her size back in Atlanta. She'd trained in warehouses where the ring ropes were actual garden hoses. What did this woman know about real struggle? Declan Hayes walked in, breaking the tension like a gust of clarity. "She's on the list. Full access. 3 months to prove herself." Fiona didn't back down. Instead, she turned toward the center ring and said loud enough for the cameras to pick up, "All right then. If she wants to train here, let's find out if she can survive here. 3 rounds with me. Just sparring, of course. If she lasts, she stays. If not, she's out." Amara met Fiona's eyes. Cold, calculated, amused, and she nodded. "I accept." The room buzzed. Fiona blinked. "You sure I don't want to be blamed when your feelings and your face get hurt?" "I'm sure," Amara repeated, voice steady. Somewhere in the back, someone muttered, "She's dead." Others grinned, phones already out, eager to capture the viral beatdown. The girl from the States versus the queen of the ring. It was perfect content. But Declan noticed something odd. While Fiona preened for the camera, Amara remained silent, hands relaxed. No jitters, no shifting weight. Just calm, like someone waiting for a storm they'd already seen 100 times. "Kid," Declan said quietly, pulling her aside. "You don't have to do this. She's not just talk. Fiona's fast, brutal." Amara looked him in the eye. "I've seen worse." Declan hesitated. "Why say yes then?" She didn't answer right away. Her voice came low, even. "Because she looked at me like I was a joke. And I've been a lot of things in life, but never a joke." Then she added, "Besides, it's not the first time I've had to fight to be allowed in a room." That struck him harder than any punch he'd seen in years. Fiona had already started posting pre-fight content. "Just doing my community service," she said to her millions of fans. "This poor American girl thinks she can hang with the best. Let's see how long she lasts." The comments flew in. "Break her jaw." "Queen show her who owns that ring." "She doesn't even look like she can lift a dumbbell." Meanwhile, Amara changed in the corner. No fanfare, no entourage, no live stream, just silence. She taped her own wrists, pulled on the gloves one of the junior trainers reluctantly offered, and stared at the ring. Fiona bounced on her toes, blowing kisses to the cameras. "Better get the ice ready for this girl," she said, throwing a few showy punches into the air. But Declan was no longer watching Fiona. He was watching Amara's footwork as she warmed up tight, practiced, precise. And something about it gave him a chill. Like he'd just lit a match and realized the room was full of gas. Declan watched Amara shadowbox in the corner with a sinking feeling in his chest. It wasn't just that she was good. It was the way she moved, like she'd done this forever. Like the rhythm of fighting was as natural to her as breathing. He'd trained Olympic medalists, championship hopefuls. But this girl moved like someone who didn't learn in gyms. She moved like someone who had survived in places where mistakes meant more than a loss. They meant pain. And yet Fiona still had no idea what she was stepping into. "All right, love," Fiona called out, slipping her mouthguard in and giving the camera one last wink. "Don't blink too much. You might miss your entire career." Amara stepped between the ropes without saying a word. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than all of Fiona's mockery. Declan called them to center ring. 3 rounds. Light contact only. "I don't want broken noses or bruised egos." Fiona snorted. "Speak for her." But Amara didn't even flinch. When the bell rang, Fiona sprang forward with speed and confidence. She threw a jab, then another, quick, sharp, practiced. But Amara leaned back effortlessly. Not a single punch touched her. Fiona narrowed her eyes. The next jab came harder, faster, but Amara pivoted, stepped left, and slipped it like smoke through fingers. She wasn't fighting. She was reading. "Come on, then," Fiona barked, already irritated. She threw a hook, then a cross, putting real weight behind them now. But Amara was gone again. Ducking low, circling. The crowd started murmuring. Declan stood with arms crossed. The rhythm, the discipline, this wasn't beginner's luck. This girl had training. Not polished, maybe, but raw and deadly. By the end of round 1, Fiona hadn't landed a clean hit. Amara hadn't thrown one either, but she didn't need to. Everyone watching could feel it. The power was waiting. Coiled. When round 2 started, Fiona was flushed with frustration. She charged harder now, launching a flurry of combinations designed to overwhelm. She managed to graze Amara's shoulder, but in return, Amara snapped a clean jab to Fiona's cheekbone. Sharp, surgical. Fiona stepped back in shock. It was the first punch, and it was perfect. Someone gasped. The energy in the gym shifted instantly. People leaned forward. Phones dropped slightly. This wasn't a prank anymore. That's when Fiona made her first real mistake. She got angry. She abandoned technique and lunged, throwing wild haymakers, trying to force the moment to match the narrative she'd already posted online. And Amara punished her. A duck, a sidestep, a 2-punch counter. Then Amara stopped, pulled back, almost like she was giving Fiona a chance to breathe. Fiona didn't take it. Instead, she spat her mouthguard to the floor and shouted, "You think you're better than me?" Amara looked at her, not with hatred, not even pity, just clarity. "I think you forgot what this ring was for." The room went dead quiet. And then Declan called it. "That's enough. Sparring session over." But Fiona shook her head, breathless and red-faced. "No. She thinks she's done. I say one more round." Declan raised his hands. "You want to push this further, Fiona, fine. But you're the one who asked for it." He turned to Amara. "Are you okay continuing?" Amara just nodded. And the bell rang. This time, Amara didn't wait. She advanced. She didn't come like a rookie testing the waters. She came like someone who knew this dance, who knew exactly how long Fiona's arms were, how sloppy her cross had become when she got emotional, and where the blind spot opened up after her left hook. She used every inch of that knowledge. Jab, cross, duck, uppercut. Fiona reeled, nearly stumbled. Amara followed. A hook to the ribs. A right to the temple, not heavy, but firm. Then she stepped back. Gave her space. Fiona stood there, breathing like a cornered animal. Her eyes wide. Her aura shattered. Then, Amara did something no one expected. She dropped her gloves, slightly tilted her head, and said gently, You don't have to keep performing. Not for them. Fiona blinked. I've fought for food, for rent, for silence in places where gunshots were normal. I'm not your enemy. You made me one because I didn't fit your script. Fiona didn't respond. She couldn't. Declan stepped in again. That's it. It's over. Amara nodded and walked away without raising her arms, without basking in applause. She didn't need it. She knew what had just happened, and so did everyone else in that room. Fiona stayed frozen, fists still clenched, but her eyes now wet. Not from the pain, but from the realization. Amara hadn't just outboxed her. She dismantled the very myth Fiona built her career on. And for the first time in years, Fiona Blackwood had nothing to say to a camera. Fiona sat in the corner of the ring, still catching her breath. The crowd had dispersed into a whisper, like air slowly leaking out of a balloon. Her gloves hung limply by her sides, eyes staring at nothing. Her social media manager, Reese, hovered nearby with a concerned look, unsure whether to take out the phone again or just walk away. Even he wasn't sure if what had happened would help their engagement metrics or bury them. Across the gym, Amara was unlacing her gloves quietly. No celebration, no flex, no cameras. Just silence. Declan leaned against the ropes, watching her, not just impressed, but deeply moved. He'd seen young fighters with speed, with power, with promise. But what Amara carried was something older, forged in hardship, and sharpened with grace. She carried restraint. She could have humiliated her, he murmured to himself. But she chose not to. And that choice, more than the punches, was what stunned the gym into stillness. Fiona finally stood. She wasn't injured, just bruised in a place no ice pack could reach. The echo of Amara's words still rang in her head. You made me your enemy, because I didn't fit your script. For Fiona, a woman who'd built an empire on dominance and narrative control, that sentence hit harder than any jab. Reese finally approached. You want to say something to the camera? We could do a follow-up. Say it was just a bad day. Maybe a pulled muscle, Reese. Her voice was hoarse. Yeah, turn the camera off. He blinked. Wait, you serious? She didn't answer. She just walked past him head low into the locker room. Amara was there, sitting on a bench tying her shoes. She looked up, but didn't flinch. Fiona stopped just inside the doorway. A beat of silence. Then, without meeting her eyes, Fiona mumbled, You're good. Amara shrugged. I'm experienced. Another pause. Fiona's throat worked like she was chewing words that wouldn't go down. You don't have to, Amara interrupted gently. Not now. Fiona met her gaze. Then the arrogance drained, replaced by something brittle and unsure. How long have you really been fighting? Amara smiled faintly. Longer than I've been breathing, I think. Fiona gave a short, bitter laugh and sat across from her. That's what it felt like. Like you knew everything I was going to do. I've seen it all before, Amara said softly. Different gyms, different faces. Same look in their eyes when they see someone like me and decide what I must be. You didn't hate me. Fiona said it not like a question, but a confession. I wanted to, Amara admitted. For a second. But hate doesn't help me. Dignity does. For the first time since Fiona Blackwood laced gloves at age 12, she had no comeback. When Amara left that evening, she didn't post, didn't tweet. She just walked home. Took the train back to the small flat, where she shared a mattress with her aunt and little cousin. She reheated rice, folded laundry, and slept like a rock. Fiona, meanwhile, lay awake in her luxury apartment, the lights off her phone buzzing endlessly beside her. Mentions tags, reposts. But she didn't touch it. For once, the silence wasn't boring. It was deafening. By morning, it was too late. The gym's unofficial footage had already made it online. Someone had recorded the sparring match, every slip, every counter, every broken breath. No editing, no PR filters, just raw reality. It was spreading like wildfire. The clip titled, Unknown Girl Dismantles World Champion, without saying a word, hit 2 million views in 5 hours. Comments poured in. That's not just boxing. That's chess with fists. Who is this girl Fiona got read like a children's book? Respect isn't loud. This proved it. Hashtags flooded Twitter. Dignity. In the ring. Check Amara Lewis. Check silence. Speaks Fiona's sponsors were tagged relentlessly. By noon, 2 brand managers had already called to reassess alignment. By nightfall, she was trending, but not in the way she used to. Meanwhile, Amara returned to the gym like nothing had happened. Declan handed her a clean towel and said, "Just so you know, there's a journalist from The Guardian outside." "I'm not doing interviews," she said. He nodded. "What do you want?" Amara looked around the gym. "To train. To get better. To make sure this isn't the best I'll ever be." Declan smiled. "We'll make sure it's not." Later that evening, Fiona opened Instagram. Her latest post, the smug pre-fight photo with the caption, "Hope she brought ice," was flooded with comments mocking her, defending Amara, dissecting her fall. She scrolled and scrolled until she hit one that stopped her cold. "She beat you, but she also spared you. Why do you think that hurts more?" Fiona dropped the phone. And for the first time, she started to understand. It wasn't just that she lost. It was that someone she had publicly belittled had chosen not to destroy her. That kind of power doesn't come from fists. It comes from restraint. And now she had to ask herself a question she'd never faced before. What does it mean when your enemy shows more grace than you ever thought possible? And more importantly, what do you do next? Fiona sat alone at her kitchen counter the next morning, a mug of untouched tea cooling beside her. The comment from last night still echoed in her mind like a punch that never stopped landing. She beat you, but she also spared you. Why do you think that hurts more? She didn't even know who had posted it. Probably some random teenager with a Twitter account and too much time. But it stuck. Maybe because it was true. Fiona had faced opponents with knockout power. She'd been bruised, cut, and pushed to her limits in 12-round wars. But nothing, absolutely nothing, felt like this. This quiet unraveling, this realization that she had been spared not out of mercy, but out of principle. She didn't just lose a sparring match. She lost her reflection. The sponsorship cancellations rolled in over the next 2 days. First, it was the energy drink company. Then, the athletic wear brand she'd worn since her debut fight. Then, the skincare line that featured her in every ad campaign from Seoul to Berlin. Reese tried to put on a brave face, but the panic was visible. "This'll pass," he said, pacing her living room. "We'll say you were unwell. Get ahead of the narrative." Maybe even Fiona stopped him. "It's not a narrative. It's the truth." He blinked. "So, you're not fighting it?" "I am fighting," she said, "just not the way you think." That night, Fiona opened her laptop and drafted an email. Subject line, "To the girl who humbled me." But she didn't send it. Instead, she printed it, folded it neatly, and sent it by post to the gym, handwritten and unsigned. Meanwhile, Amara continued to train. She was deliberate, focused, almost invisible in the buzz that surrounded her. Declan offered her chances to do interviews, to meet with agents and promoters, but she kept refusing. "I don't want to be a headline," she said. "I want to be undeniable." Word spread anyway. Young fighters whispered about her during warm-ups. Journalists tried to sneak photos. Some of the other fighters started calling her the Phantom for how quickly and quietly she moved through the building. One day, Declan approached her after a session. "You're on every shortlist now. Offers are coming in from LA, Tokyo, even Vegas." "I'm not ready," she replied simply. "You are, and you need to know something." He handed her a folded letter. She wrote this. Amara frowned. Fiona Declan nodded. No cameras, no PR, just this. Amara opened the letter, scanning the tight, slanted script. No excuses, no fake apologies, just raw honesty. "I saw you as a threat before I ever saw you as a person. You showed me who I really am, and it wasn't who I thought. I lost, but I deserve to. Thank you for being better than I was. You didn't have to be." Amara read it twice, then folded it again. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. But something in her shoulders eased. Later that week, Amara finally gave in and accepted a meeting with Golden Palm Promotions, a company known for backing rising female fighters with real grit. The room was full of men in suits, and one woman in a sharp blazer, who asked only one question. "What do you want from your career?" Amara replied, "I want young girls to see me, and never flinch again when someone tells them they don't belong." The contract was signed 2 days later. Her first fight was booked for 6 weeks out in Barcelona. A co-main event 3-round debut against an Italian contender with a professional record, and Fiona Blackwood. She watched the announcement livestream from her apartment curled on the couch with a hoodie pulled over her face. She didn't look at the comments. She didn't post. She didn't even tell Reese. But when Amara's face appeared on screen, eyes calm, body still, Fiona whispered, almost without thinking, "She's going to change this sport." In the days leading up to the fight, Amara trained harder than ever. The gym buzzed with energy. Declan brought in new sparring partners. The media buzz grew daily. Yet through it all, she remained quiet, laser-focused. She didn't care about pay-per-view numbers or predictions. What mattered was stepping into the ring as herself. Not the underdog, not the viral moment, not the phantom, just Amara. And for the first time, the world was ready to meet her on her terms. The day before she left for Spain, Amara walked into the empty gym one last time. It was early. Just her, the bags, and the echo of memory. She stood at the center of the ring, the same place Fiona had once tried to break her, and whispered softly to no one, "I forgive her." She didn't say it for Fiona. She said it to set herself free. Because Amara Lewis knew something now. Something Fiona Blackwood was still learning. Sometimes grace is the loudest form of strength. The words hung in the air. I forgive her. Not as weakness, not as surrender, but as a declaration of freedom. Amara left the ring that morning lighter, though her body carried the weight of 10 years of fights no one had ever seen. Grace had cost her more than pain ever had, but it also opened a door. By the time she landed in Barcelona, she was no longer just a promising prospect. She was the girl who made the world's loudest champion fall silent. The story had traveled faster than her fists, transcending boxing, reaching classrooms, podcast debates, even talk show monologues. But Amara ignored all of it. She arrived with a duffel bag, a notebook of training notes, and a single promise to herself: don't become what you beat. The arena smelled of sweat and camera lights. Her opponent, Lucia. The Viper Romano was a solid striker with a 7-1 record and a penchant for brutal flurries. The press assumed Lucia would be the first real test for Amara, failing to realize Amara had taken harder punches in silence than most had in the spotlight. Declan was in her corner now, a quiet presence. No slogans, no theatrics, just trust. "You ready?" he asked, tightening her gloves. Amara nodded. Always. When the bell rang, Amara didn't dance or dodge like she did with Fiona. This was different. Lucia wasn't arrogant, just aggressive. So Amara gave her what she wanted: rhythm. A chess match, not a spectacle. First round even, second round close. Third round Amara opened up. Not just physically, but emotionally. With every strike, she exhaled the weight of survival. With every duck and counter, she rejected every stereotype ever shoved in her face. The final combo, a sharp uppercut, followed by a right cross, dropped Lucia clean. A standing 8 count confirmed it. The ref raised Amara's hand. She didn't cry. She didn't grin. She simply nodded. Her first professional win. But back in London, someone else had been watching every second of that fight. Fiona Blackwood sat alone in the same apartment phone, in hand replaying the final round on silent. She had kept out of the spotlight for weeks now. The press had moved on partially. Sponsors had stayed away. Reese had stopped texting. Her apology letter had never been acknowledged. But that didn't matter anymore. For the first time in her life, Fiona was okay not being seen. She opened her email, hesitated, then began typing a message. Subject: You don't have to respond. Body: I watched your fight. You were brilliant. You fought like you knew exactly who you are, and that's what I never had. I'm trying to find that now without the noise. If there's ever anything I can do to support what you're building, say the word. And if not, thank you for giving me a mirror I didn't know I needed. Fiona didn't send it. She saved it in drafts, then opened her browser and searched volunteer youth boxing centers near me. Meanwhile, Amara was on a plane back to London, exhausted but calm. Her phone was blowing up agents, broadcasters, sponsors, but she only answered one message: Declan's. He texted proud, doesn't even cover it. She replied, 1 down, 1,000 to go. Over the next 2 weeks, Amara began building something bigger than herself. She registered a nonprofit called Groundwork. The mission to provide training, mentorship, and scholarships to girls who didn't come from privilege, but had fire in their veins. The slogan came easily earned, not given. Donations poured in. Volunteers lined up. Declan offered his gym for free. Fiona remained silent, but her anonymous donation arrived within days. Amara knew it was her. No one else would sign a $10,000 check in the name of grace. And then came the ESPN interview. Reluctantly, Amara agreed to one sit-down live primetime, no makeup, no branding. The interviewer asked, "What do you think happened back in London with Fiona Blackwood?" Amara took a long breath. She was afraid, she said finally. And when people are afraid, they lash out. But fear doesn't have to define who you become. She taught me that, even if she didn't mean to. The host blinked, caught off guard. So, you're saying she helped you? Amara smiled, a quiet strength in her eyes. She reminded me that forgiveness isn't about them. It's about staying intact. The segment went viral. Not because it was flashy, but because it told a truth so few fighters had ever dared speak. That in a world obsessed with domination, dignity might be the fiercest power of all. The interview aired on a Sunday night, and by Monday morning the internet had already chosen its next icon. Not just Amara the fighter, but Amara the voice. The girl who didn't just win fights, but redefined what winning meant. Clips of her words, "Forgiveness is about staying intact," circulated across every platform. Professional athletes reposted it. Activists quoted it. Even celebrities who had never laced a glove before were calling her brave. But Amara didn't let the noise in. She showed up at the gym the next morning at 6 a.m., sharp as usual. Declan was already there, brewing coffee with a proud smirk that couldn't be hidden behind his grizzled face. "You broke the internet," he said, handing her a mug. She took it, sipped, and shrugged. "The internet'll heal." He laughed. "You don't get it, do you? Get with that you're not just the girl who knocked out a champion anymore. You're the one who turned down the easy revenge arc and chose something better. You're dangerous now. In the right way." Amara didn't answer, but she didn't argue either. Later that afternoon, she stopped by the community center, where Groundwork had just rented its first real training space. It was an old warehouse with cracked floors and faded walls. But to her, it was perfect. It reminded her of home, of the Atlanta nights in borrowed gyms and street corner scraps, of the hunger that shaped her. The first class had 5 girls aged between 9 and 15, shy, quiet, mostly watching her like she was a hologram from a different planet. "You don't have to be fast," she told them. "You just have to be ready." She taught them footwork, balance, how to breathe through fear. By the end of the hour, 3 of them smiled. Progress. But in another part of the city, Fiona Blackwood was facing her own reckoning. She had applied anonymously at first, as a volunteer mentor at an underfunded youth boxing program on the East End. The woman who ran it, a blunt ex-fighter named Carla Nguyen, took one look at her application and said, "Come clean or don't come at all." Fiona showed up the next week. No makeup, no cameras, just gloves and a nervous stomach. Her first day was brutal, not because of the training, but because of the silence. The kids knew who she was. They'd seen the video, the memes, the knockout, the humiliation. One boy, maybe 11, muttered loud enough for her to hear, "That's the lady who got wrecked by that American." Fiona didn't correct him. She just kept teaching. Over time, she stopped hearing the whispers. By the third week, one of the girls asked her how it felt to lose. Fiona paused, then said, "It taught me more than winning ever did." That answer made its way back to Amara through Declan, through a coach, through whispers. She didn't say much in return, just nodded and said, "That's growth." And then the letter came. Official this time, on Golden Palm Promotions letterhead. Subject title, Shot Offer. Unified Women's Lightweight Championship 3 months from now. Madison Square Garden. Amara Lewis versus Elena Petrova, undefeated Eastern European powerhouse, reigning unified champion. It was the kind of moment fighters train for their whole lives. Declan read the letter over her shoulder. "You ready for this?" Amara was quiet. Then asked, "Do you think I'm doing this for the right reasons?" He didn't hesitate. "I think if you weren't, you wouldn't have asked." Amara smiled. "Then I guess it's time." Word got out within hours. Lewis gets her title shot, from scholarship program to title fight. Amara's 3-month climb. Is this the rise of a new era in boxing? Even Fiona received the news through a kid's phone screen in the gym, where she now trained daily. "She's gonna be champ," the girl whispered, pride in her voice. Fiona didn't disagree. The night before the fight, Amara sat alone in her hotel room overlooking the glowing skyline of New York City. Her phone buzzed with texts from sponsors, reporters, even people from her old neighborhood in Atlanta. She put it face down. Instead, she reached for a folded piece of paper creased and weathered. The handwritten letter from Fiona. She read it again, every word, then tucked it into her bag. When she entered Madison Square Garden the next evening, there were chants, posters, lights. But she walked in calm, heart steady. Not because she wasn't nervous, but because she knew that whatever happened next, it wouldn't define her. She had already won the most important fight, one the world didn't see. And now, she was just here to finish what she started. Madison Square Garden pulsed with electricity. The crowd roared, lights spun across the ring like a storm preparing to land. But Amara Lewis moved through the noise, as if it were silence. She climbed the steps, ducked through the ropes, and stood under the glare, not as someone seeking validation, but as someone fulfilling a quiet, patient promise to herself. This wasn't about revenge. Not Fiona. Not even the title. This was about completion. The bell rang. Across from her, Elena Petrova was everything her record claimed: powerful, ruthless, unshakably precise. The first few exchanges were tight. Elena tested her fast jabs like sonar, mapping her range. Amara gave little in return, slipped, blocked, countered just enough. She wasn't fighting Elena's fight. She was waiting for her own. By round 2, the commentary shifted. "She's not overwhelmed by the occasion," one announcer said. "She's setting a trap," the other replied. Elena grew more aggressive. She was used to pressure breaking people. But Amara didn't fold. Her rhythm stayed grounded, almost stubbornly so. With each round, she revealed a little more. A jab here, a sharp body shot there. By round 4, she had found the beat. Declan in the corner wiped her brow and whispered, "Now. Let her see you." And Amara did. She opened the 5th round with a flurry that stunned even the crowd. A left-right left that forced Elena back for the first time in the match. Then she reset, calm again, not chasing, just present. Elena retaliated, fierce and fast. But for every blow she landed, Amara returned one, sharper, smarter, cleaner. By round 6, the crowd wasn't just cheering, they were chanting. "Let's go, Lewis." It was no longer about where she came from. It was about where she stood now. The 8th round came like thunder. Amara slipped a wide hook, ducked low, then launched an uppercut straight from her core. It connected under Elena's chin, with a sound that silenced the entire arena for half a beat. Elena stumbled. The ref counted. She beat it barely. But the tone had changed. The champion looked shaken. The challenger composed. In round 9, Amara kept applying pressure, but with surgical precision. She wasn't hunting for a knockout. She was dismantling an empire one combination at a time. And then, it was round 10. Final round. Both fighters stood sweat-streaked, breathing heavy. The bell rang. They met in the center and fought, not out of hatred, not for headlines, but for truth. In the final seconds, Amara dodged a right, stepped inside, and landed a short hook to the body that sent Elena stumbling into the ropes. The bell rang again. It was done. They stood in the middle arms, down hearts loud. The announcer's voice trembled over the speakers. By unanimous decision, the new unified women's lightweight champion of the world, Amara Lewis. The crowd erupted. Amara didn't jump. She didn't scream. She turned to Elena, nodded, and whispered, "Respect." Elena, bruised, but still proud, nodded back. Amara raised her gloves once, just once, for the cameras. And then she left the ring. But the story didn't end there. A week later, Amara stood in front of a crowd in South London, inside a gym where a dozen young girls were hitting bags and skipping rope. Cameras flashed as she cut the ribbon on the first official Groundwork Foundation gym outside the U.S. Strength, she told them, isn't what knocks people down. It's what gets you through what should have broken you. She paused, then smiled. And sometimes it's what lets you forgive the people who tried. In the front row stood Fiona Blackwood. Not in the spotlight, not in press photos. Just there. She clapped the loudest. Later, Amara walked over to her quietly. No fanfare. "Thank you for coming," she said. Fiona nodded. "You gave me the mirror. I just finally looked in it." Amara held out a pair of gloves. Not symbolic, real, worn. For the next girl, she said. Not to fight with, to train her right. Fiona took them with both hands. "Earned," she said. Amara finished it, not given. That night, a sports network aired a special called From Silence to Storm, The Rise of Amara Lewis. It closed not with slow-motion punches or trophies, but with her voice over footage of the community gym. You can fight for a belt, or you can fight for a life. One ends when the lights go off. The other never stops. As the camera panned out, dozens of girls punched bags in rhythm, young, fierce, determined. And in that echoing sound of gloves against leather, something became clear. Amara hadn't just won the title. She had changed the definition of what a champion was.